Interested in real estate? How about wealth? Well, they go hand in hand. And here, you'll learn all about it. Welcome to Be the Bank, a podcast where we discuss and debate the topics centered around real estate investing. Your host, Justin Bogard, shares insights into investing in real estate to create real wealth and passive income for you and your family. He'll share stories of real estate investments done right, walk you through the process of owning a real estate note, and most importantly, educate you so you can be the bank. This is Be the Bank, brought to you by American Note Buyers. Now, here's your host, Justin Bogard.
Hey, listener. This is episode number 6 of season 6 on the Be the Bank podcast, brought to you by American Note Buyers. And today it's going to be a little bit different. We actually have an investor of ours that's invested with us for a while now. And he's got a cool story. He's actually a high school basketball coach. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and kind of his ventures in landlording and lien lording. So Mr. Joe Leonard will be on, so stay tuned. Hey, Joe.
That's Listen, a Jimi Hendrix song.
Good. That's a Jimi Hendrix song, right? It starts off, hey, Joe.
I think so.
So if I email or text anybody named Joe, that's the first thing that comes to my head because my dad plays in a band, and so he loves the 60s and 50s and 70s music, and right. Hendrix is one of his artists, favorite artists, because he plays guitar too.
Okay.
Not left-handed, right-handed. But yeah, so I always think of that. Hey, Joe.
Yeah. How we doing?
I'm doing really well. Unfortunately, it's kind of gloomy here in the Fishers, Indiana area where I'm currently at recording this. And I think you're not too far from me, aren't you? You're in Ohio?
Yeah, I'm in Akron, Kent area, which is south of Cleveland.
Okay, so you basically helped LeBron get to the NBA, right?
Right. I wish. I wish.
Man, how long ago has he been in the NBA for 20 years?
He has. So he was quite the high school player, and he's done the same on the pro level.
Have you ever run across him?
I have not. No, I mean, I've seen him play quite a few times, but never run across him.
When he played for the Cavaliers or during high school stuff?
During the Cavalier days, high school days, those were smaller venues, and so they usually sold out, so you usually couldn't get tickets.
Probably 2 years in advance, too.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Well, I guess the audience doesn't realize, if they don't already, you coach high school women's basketball as your profession, right?
Correct. So I retired about 2.5 years ago, and so my job right now is to coach high school varsity girls basketball. And so that's my passion. The season just ended last week. And so yeah, I spend most of my time on basketball.
I love basketball. I thought I was decent at it until I got to try out to the middle school team. And then I realized I wasn't that good at playing basketball. Right. It was just in my mind, playing with my buddies, doing those no blood, no foul rules was always fun. But, yeah, I never could play with the others on the, a structured environment. So I'm just a pickup guy. That's all I am.
Nothing wrong with that.
So what did you do before you retired?
So my profession up until a few years ago, I was in the corporate world of a grocery store. And so I used to travel around as a regional manager of a local grocery store in the Cleveland, Columbus, Youngstown area. And so if anyone knows anything about retail is 6 days a week. And even on the seventh day that you're off, you're still going to get called. It's a tough way to make a living.
Oh, man. Well, I'm glad that you got out of that. You don't seem like you're too old. So did you retire early?
I did. I was 51. And so it was kind of always a goal of mine as I was growing up. And so as I went about my journey with real estate, my main goal wasn't, what am I going to have in 20 years, 30 years? It was, how do I replace the income that I'm currently, doing a job. And so that's how I always analyze any deal or anything that I thought I might want to get into. So
when did you start investing in real estate?
So growing up, my dad, he had one or two, I think he had one house that he rented out. And so as a kid, I was always fascinated by that. And so he actually owned it before I was born. But, my brother and I would always ask him questions about it. And we were just kind of always amazed that you could, he had a 2-family home. And I think him and my mom lived upstairs or whatever. They rented the other part out. And so my brother and I were kind of fascinated by that. And so when it was our turn to buy our first home, we both did that 4 streets apart from each other in the city of Cleveland. It was a 2-family home. This was like middle of the 1990s. And so I lived upstairs. I rented the downstairs, and I had a roommate at the time because, I was pretty young at the time. So, so the payment at that time was, in the 90s was like $400 a month was the mortgage payment. And the guy downstairs was paying $600. And the roommate was paying $300 plus half utilities. And I'm like, you know what, there might be something to this. So
yeah, I like the numbers already.
Yeah, it was pretty good. So from there, I lived there for about 10 years. Really allowed me to max out on 401k and just kind of save in any other fashion. And then about 10 years later, I bought another one, and then the journey just continued from there. I just continued to buy more and more. So
when did owning rentals become more of like a part-time job, since you had a full-time job at the time?
So I got up to about 10 or 11 houses, and I would say around number 5 or 6, it became another job. So I always had a management company. So for me, I was pretty busy with my work. And so I really couldn't afford to be dealing with phone calls in the middle of the night and all that other stuff. So I had a management company that took care of a lot of it. But, there's still the worry of just owning a rental property.
Yeah. So you obviously have bought some loans before, which is why you're on the Be the Bank podcast today. And so at what point did you decide, or did you figure out that you kind of wanted to invest in some notes as well?
So I always thought the buy and hold real estate would allow me to retire. And so what I quickly learned was that wasn't going to be the case. And so I needed steady, reliable income. And it just wasn't going to happen. I might get $500 from this house one month, and then next month I get nothing, or then I get 200. Okay. And so it was just too unstable. And so I was at a real estate, one of those meetings in downtown Cleveland with everyone gathered around. And so, a speaker showed up. I'm not even sure who the speaker was, but he was discussing notes, and I had never heard about it. And so he passed out a flyer. I literally left middle of he had an intermission, probably about an hour into it. And I grabbed the paper and I said, this guy, he's crazy. So I left. And so I went home, and the more I thought about it, it had a too good to be true kind of a feel about it at first. And so I began to realize maybe it wasn't too good to be true. And so I did as much research as I could on performing notes and, all those things. And in the Cleveland area at that time, there wasn't a note convention or any type of group that met for notes. I don't even know if there is today, but so I traveled down to Cincinnati, and that's where I saw you speak at that meeting down there in Cincinnati. And so when I sat through that meeting, I just remembered when you came up, it just seemed like a straightforward, honest. You didn't seem like you were trying to sell the group anything. You know what I mean? You're just kind of an educator of knowledge. And so I had a real good feel about that. And so shortly thereafter, we exchanged numbers, and I purchased my first one from you.
That's awesome. Well, I must have been a very good actor back then to convince you that I wasn't trying to sell you. Just kidding.
No, I mean, I can remember being on the phone, and the first one we bought was in Indiana. And you said to me, you said, Joe, this is in my home state. If anything goes wrong here, I'm not going to disappear. I'll be there for you. And I said, all right, let's do it. And so I remember being on vacation. I got the first payment. I thought, well, this is pretty good. So, it just kind of building from there. And so eventually I sold all the rental properties that I had and went all in after I went through COVID with the notes that I had. And I really did very well. I was fortunate. I thought, boy, oh boy, I bought all these notes and now here we go with COVID. Boy, this is the dumbest idea ever. And after COVID happened, it was kind of a proof of concept. If you can survive COVID with the notes, then go for it. So I sold every rental property I had. I bought every single note that I possibly could. And then shortly thereafter, a couple of years ago, I retired.
That's awesome. So collapsing your entire rental portfolio and converting into notes. We had the same assumptions going into COVID as well with our portfolio. We're just like, oh man, I don't know how this is going to turn out, but people kept paying and they kept paying and they kept paying. And I'm like, I'm not seeing any performance going the opposite direction. I'm seeing, if anything, it's keeps steady and people are wanting to pay off early. And so we had a great experience during COVID as well. And even after the post-COVID stuff as well in our portfolio. So what has been your geographic model with buying notes versus rentals? Because obviously with rentals, you probably kept them close to where you actually live there in the Akron, Cleveland area, right?
Yes. And so with the notes, you know, I bought the first few from you, or I don't know, it's probably 6 or 7 that I got from you. And so a lot of those were Indiana in your home state there. At first, you know, I still had the mindset of a landlord, so I was trying to get them as close as possible. So I do have probably 5 or 6 Ohio, but then eventually, you know, you got to spread your wings. And so now I'm all over, you know, we're Alabama, Arizona, Oklahoma, Mississippi, Florida. So it's pretty much just the beauty of notes is that, you know, you can go all over. I don't have any California. I don't have any New York. I'm not really sure why. I just think I've heard enough that say don't do that. So I just kind of stay away. But really, I like the Midwest. But I'll always look at, you know, the location really doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's the same thing that I went through when I got into the notes business, from being in what I call traditional real estate, where everything was local to me and I could see it and I could touch it and I could walk through it. And the first time we get a note, you're just like, well, it's not near me. Like, should I be doing this? Like, you're starting to question everything about it. But then, you know, you step back and like, it's just a passive investment. Like if I was going to the stock market and just picking something out, like it's nothing where I can see and touch and feel. It's like you're dependent on other things. Obviously there's no security with that, and different apples to apples comparison, but apples to bananas comparison, I guess. But yeah, it's so different. But then, like, I like what you said when you're on vacation, you got that first check, because I was actually on vacation when I bought my first note. I was actually out of the country when I bought it, and it was just kind of a cool feeling. It's like I can be here, present with my kids and my family, and then also I can step aside and do this transaction. I can do it from anywhere in the world, and I don't have to be there in front of a property. I don't have to be in front of a title company to close, and it can all just happen seamlessly. And I have the same, you know, rights and ownerships as any other bank. It wouldn't be any different. So it's just kind of a cool feeling how this whole process works in the note space, and how it's just kind of, it's more seamless and streamlined than what you would think.
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree. I have a few friends who are still buy and hold, and I think they think it's cool to have physical properties. Like, look at all my properties. I'm like, well, you can say what you want, but I remember when I was the landlord, you know, they would move out every year or two, and then you got to put in money to advertise to get a new tenant. And so then the cities in the Cleveland area were getting so tough on landlords that there's no way I would want to go back to that. In fact, when I buy notes now, I want performing notes. I don't want to take over. I've already been a landlord. I don't want the property. I don't want to get involved in that. That's not my goal. So for me, I look at payment history, a solid payment history. If it's not solid, I don't care what the yield is. I'm not interested.
Yeah, that's a good way to analyze your deals. And I've always been that way as well, is looking at the pay history and not really looking at the return, because the return versus what you have in front of you, you know, if you have a great note, you're going to get a little bit lower return. But if you have a risky note, you're going to get a little bit higher return, right? Because you expect that. But oftentimes that riskier note doesn't give you the higher return because they keep missing payments, or it becomes a a foreclosure or maybe a dragged on foreclosure, and it can really slow down your deal when you're trying to get cash flow. When you're not worried about cash flow and you're being transactional, but you can wait a year or two, then you anticipate non-performing to be part of your portfolio. But when you're strictly trying to replace your income like you were trying to do, you definitely want to have consistent payers, on-time payers, and have that predictable cash flow coming in. And then obviously once you build it up enough, 10, 12, 20 loans, then you can absorb some of those downtimes that come in with those loans, because there are things that happen in the business with the type of loans that we buy. We got payers that sometimes they're living a little bit paycheck to paycheck, and sometimes they might have to pinch a few pennies, every month, and might be skipping a mortgage payment or two, but they typically get caught up. And so once you have a big enough portfolio, you just absorb some of those bumps in the road.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly, I mean, everyone goes in it for their own, some people want to take the property over. Some people, like you said, that yield is most important to them. For me, I didn't want to work. I wanted to do what I wanted to do, and steady income, replacing my income, plus giving me some buffer so that I could continue to buy and replace the ones that fall off every year because of payment or whatever. So everybody has their own strategy. It's just finding what your strategy is. And I just think the note business is definitely the way to go.
Do you do any other investing with any more of your retirement account anywhere else, or is it mainly just real estate and notes?
Just real estate and notes. It's pretty much for right now. That's that's where my comfort level is, and so But I'm always looking around. But for right now, that's really what I feel most comfortable with.
What has been an experience in note investing, since you've bought so many loans, that you kind of learned some lessons about investing in some of these things that you'd be like, man, I wish I would have realized this sooner, or I wish I would have avoided this type of note, or this red flag that I really didn't see until it was later in the pay history?
That's a good question. I would say initially I was probably too conservative, and so I probably could have been involved sooner. I think especially doing that first deal, I wanted all but guarantee that it was going to be, payments were going to be made. So I think I dragged my feet, for way longer than I probably should have. But I really there hasn't been too many surprises. I actually have my first note that is not paying, and it hasn't paid for a little while. So they're going down that foreclosure road. So this is new to me. But when I look at that deal, I think I would still do that again. It's just one of those things. It's just going to happen as you get into the business. So.
Yeah, the law of averages, or whatever you want to call it, it's going to come into play when you have a portfolio big enough. Something's going to happen to where one of them is going to go bad or not pay. It's hard to say that you'll have 100% perfect payers on every single loan that you have every single 100% of the time, right?
Yeah, it would be nice if you did, but I mean, even this one here, if they could turn around and start paying again tomorrow, I'd be fine with that, and we could try to work something out. But this one just doesn't look like it's going to happen. Now, it is within 2 hours of where I live, so I guess I'm lucky in that regards. But what are you going to do? As you say, once you start to build up enough there, you're eventually going to run across this, and so this will be a learning experience for me as I run through it.
What does your kind of day-to-day look like now that you're retired? You don't have the full-time job anymore. You obviously, you do the basketball stuff now for the local team there. But obviously, since the season's over now and you have built this wealth with the portfolio you have of your notes, do you spend a lot of time like looking at other investing opportunities? Are you more relaxed and just do other things that kind of make you happy that you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really do as much with the investing as I probably should. Obviously I check in on the notes a couple times a week just to get an idea there, but really my time is my time. And so I go to the gym probably, 5-6 days a week. I like to go see my mother who's in Cleveland. Even though the season is over for us, it really is a 10-month season. And so it'll begin in 30 days. It'll start back up the month of June. And then last summer I did a lot of volunteering. And so I spent a week in Maryland at a basketball camp. I'm just living, I'm doing things that I want to do. I'm playing in a staff against seniors basketball game. And so we have practice tonight. And so really most of my time is just, myself and my fiance, we do a lot of traveling. And so now that the season's over, that'll start. But more leisure than it is business.
Well, let me ask some non note questions here. So did you play basketball in high school and college and stuff, or?
I mean, I did in high school, but I'm 6'6" now, but back in those days I was only 5'2", so I did not play. Did not grow until college, so I'm kind of one of those lucky to be tall, but I could have used it back in the high school days. So I've always enjoyed doing that. I've been coaching for probably about 10 years, 15 years now, and it's really your passion. They say find your passion, and if you can do that, then it's not really work. And so I really enjoy that. I enjoy the game. I enjoy just working with the kids.
So has basketball always been your favorite sport?
It has. It's, even growing up, it would be countless hours in the driveway, just enjoying getting up shots. And so you being from Indiana, how about, I'm sure it's exactly it.
Yeah, my dad, as soon as he could, he put a pole in the driveway with concrete around it and a basketball hoop, and we were just out there playing dad versus son like all the time. I never could beat the old man hook shot that he had, so it was a game killer for me. I just, no matter what I did, climb on his back, whatever, it still would go in.
Yeah, that's good. And one of the things now is I can, I share stories with my players about, they always ask me, how are you so young and retired? And so it allows me to kind of educate them on not only money, but whatever else. And so you kind of build a rapport with the kids about that. And so they're certainly inquisitive, about why I can attend practice at 10 o'clock in the morning when they're off for a day, and why I could be there at 6 a.m. for a shoot around if they want. So not only, I try to help them out and let them know maybe some secrets that or some things that I've learned.
That's awesome to pay it forward. I wish people would have came to my high school and kind of taught more of the realistic financial life of what it is to be an adult, because, when everything that I was taught before I really got and learned about real estate was, you just take your paycheck and you put so much aside and you keep it in a savings account, or you keep forcing it into your 401k and let someone else manage your money. And little did I know that you could actually invest in these things and you don't have to use those standard ways of investing. Because to me, it was almost like a brainwash thing, to where I was told this is like the only thing you do. Like, oh, here, you just need to do this, without really giving you options. So it's nice to hear that you're able to pass that on to your kid, to your not your kids. I meant you're playing kids, right?
Yeah,
your
absolutely. And and some of them are interested and some of them aren't, but you always get the ones that say, I want to be rich someday. And I said, well, why don't we talk about that? What does that mean? And how are you going to go about that? So, I think they're apt to listen to you when they know that you've actually, you achieved some financial freedom. So,
yeah, they and then hanging around people that are like-minded like that as well. I mean, obviously your team is cohesive because they're all there for the same purpose and the same goal, right? And then putting yourselves with other people that are interested in real estate or interested in notes, it's only going to make you better and want to hang out with them, because you can all, feed off of each other, right? So that's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
You got any funny stories?
No, not funny stories. We lost in the playoffs last week, so we had a great year. We ended up going 22-3, and so even though you have a spectacular year, it's always a sudden end. And so for the seniors, we had 4 seniors. For them, it's you continue, but there's only at the end there's only one team that stands. So proud of the work. Back when I was in high school, or maybe when you were in high school, they just didn't put in the time and the effort. But now it's it's a 10-month commitment. I mean, if you're going to do it or do it well, if you've got kids of your own, who play sports, it's, I coach AAU basketball, and that's getting ready to start up next week. And so I've got a team that I'll coach of, 10th graders. And so the journey will start with those girls in a week or so. So
that's amazing. And you're exactly right. It's completely different today. I have a 12-year-old and 10-year-old daughters, so one in the 5th and one in the 7th grade, which is the same school. We have an intermediate and junior high that are just in the same building now. And my daughters don't really get into sports a whole lot, but every now and then they do that stuff. And you're right. It's like, if you want to be competitive in it, it's just like you have to dedicate your life to it, kind of, to want to be at that level to compete with the best of the best, or it's just a recreational thing, which is fine too. But yeah, it's a big difference between when I was back in high school, and I'm not too much younger than you. I'm a little bit younger.
A little bit.
So, yeah. All right, cool. Well, Coach Leonard, is that what they call you? Coach
That's
Leonard?
What they call me. Yes, they do.
Coach Leonard, well, I appreciate you being on the podcast today. Thank you for entrusting me with, your investment portfolio and helping you grow that. It's awesome to hear the stories that you went through with landlording and converting everything to notes. I think that's why you're the perfect candidate to be on the show, to prove that, it does make a difference, and it does alleviate a lot of challenges and uncertainties, and especially in your case, it was the predictability of that cash flow coming in. So do you have any words of wisdom for our audience here before we close out?
Well, I would say this. I would say, when people ask me, and I get asked a lot, how are you able to retire so soon or so early? Whenever I tell that story, our conversation, or our, me going down to Cincinnati, and, you're a part of it. You're a part of the story there. So, I've listened to these podcasts where they've said, I've retired and I don't have a 9-to-5. And I always thought, that's not really possible. It is. If you have it, figured out, and if you're diligent about it. And so it can happen. But for me, once I started to make any money off of real estate, I always put that money right back into buying more. I never used it to go buy something else, a new car, whatever. I just consider that to be a business, and whatever I made, it always went back in there. So I was able to save a lot sooner. So I'm just a regular guy, and I was able to do it. It is possible. And I've really enjoyed the note business. And I owe it to you, as I've said, a part of my story will always be me going down to Cincinnati and hearing your conversation.
So would you call yourself an average Joe then?
I think I'm an average Joe. Yeah. I think I'll take that. So.
All right, Joe. Well, thanks again for being on the show. It's been awesome to get to know you, and I'm glad that we're friends and we still stay connected. And everybody, this was episode number 6 on season 6 of the Be the Bank podcast. You can check out the video stream on our YouTube channel, the American Note Buyers YouTube channel as well. And Joe, so long, my friend, and I hope to see you soon.
You got it. Thanks, Justin.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to Be the Bank. We hope you learned something from today's show. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us. Plus, check out our channel on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Twitter at Be the Bank, and on Instagram at Be the Bank Podcast. Be the Bank is sponsored by American Note Buyers. Thanks again for listening.